Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Okay, so today we are going to see some question and answers of professional ethics, which in total in our book we are provided around 132 question and answers. However, today I'll be discussing a few of them which I consider it as covering a larger area so that you can revise it quickly. CASG, a practicing CA, agreed to select and recruit personnel, conduct training program for and on behalf of the client. So we come to know that CASG is a practicing CA and he has agreed to select and recruit personnel, conduct the training programs for and on behalf of the client. Okay. Now, immediately when such a category is given, okay, this person is doing this kind of a work. Okay, so that a practicing CA is doing this work. You have to first ask yourself whether it is covered in section 2, subsection 2, and clause 4, which leads to the management consultancy and other services. Okay, so whether it leads to that part. So does it lead to that part? If the answer is in that list, okay, basically select and recruit personnel, is it covered in that list? Answer is yes. So because it is covered in that list, we'll say that Mr. SG, who is a practicing CA, is providing something which is given in that entire list of currently it is amended, so it is 28 points are there in that. So out of the one of the points is select and recruit personnel. So easier see in practice? Answer is yes. So can you do that? Answer is yes, no problem at all. So there is no misconduct in relation to this part. There is no misconduct in relation to this part. Okay, he can provide that. Next, let's look at another question. Here it is given. Mr. K, a chartered accountant in practice as a sole proprietor at Chennai, has an office in the suburbs of Chennai. Due to increase in the income tax assessment work, he opens another office near the income tax office, okay, which is within the city and at a distance of 30 kilometers. Now 30 kilometers becomes important, and also this within the city becomes important, okay, from his office in the suburb. For running the new office, he has employed a retired income tax commissioner who is not a chartered accountant. Comment. Okay. And the second part of, and another question is also similar to the earlier one. So one of the two you can read. I read the above one. Okay. Now this is in relation to your section 27, that is maintenance of branch office. Okay. Here what do we understand? That if there are two offices of a CA firm, then they should have a separate in charge. Now, who can be a separate in charge? It can either be a CA partner or it can be a CA employee. One of them have to be a separate in charge. Okay. But there are exceptions to it. It says that if suppose the office is in the same premises or within the same city or 50 kilometers from the municipal boundaries of the city, then you need not have a separate in charge. Basically, there is a belief that the CA whose office is there, the second office can be handled by the same CA only. No problem at all, because it is in the same premises or within the same city or within 50 kilometers of the city. Okay. Now here we can see that he has opened another office within the city. And they have also given for clarification, it is at a distance of 30 kilometers from his first office. Okay. So basically it is manageable for him. Now, if such a thing is given, then you suddenly one thing should come in your mind, that separate in charge is not required, correct? That separate in charge is not required. Now, if it is not required, then can he appoint anyone of his choice to manage it? Answer is yes. So to manage the branch, he appointed a retired income tax commissioner, because they said that it is near the income tax office. He opened an office near the income tax office so that he can handle his income tax assessment work properly. So to manage it, he appointed a retired income tax commissioner. So has he done anything wrong? Answer is no. So now the discussion comes to, okay, then who will be the in charge of this office? So you have to always remember that Mr. K, who is a chartered accountant in practice, is the person in charge of the second office also. However, to just manage it, he has given it to the retired income tax commissioner. So this person is managing this office. Okay. So always remember, in charge is still Mr. K, because his second office is in the same city. But however, just to manage the affairs there, he has appointed Mr. Retired Income Tax Commissioner there. Okay. So the question is, they have asked you to comment here, and just you have to pass a comment whether that person is Mr. K is guilty or not. The answer is clearly no, he's not guilty. No problem at all. Okay. So he can do this thing. Now let's look at the next one. Here you can see that is a May 16 November 2013 question. Okay. Has been asked twice. Mr. Ankit, who passed a CA examination of ICAI on 18 July 2015, has started his practice from 15th August 2015. Okay. On 16th August 2015, one candidate approached him for articleship. Mr. Ankit decided to give her 1% of his CA firm, 1% profit of a CA firm in addition to the monthly stipend. So is she been denied monthly stipend? Answer is no. Monthly stipend ke sath sath she is being given 1% of the profits of a CA firm. Okay. She agreed to take both 1% of profits and prescribed stipend. Of course she'll agree while she say no. Okay, she's getting good income, no. Okay. The ICI had sent a letter to Mr. Ankit objecting the payment of 1% profits. Mr. Ankit replied, stating that sharing 1% profit is over and above the stipend to help the article clerk to overcome her financial crisis. Okay, maybe in the family she's having a financial crisis. So just to help with that, he is giving 1% of the profits. Okay. Is Mr. Ankit liable for professional misconduct? Okay. Now here, no, what ICI is trying to do is ICI is playing with you emotionally. Okay. So basically ICI is telling you, look at Mr. Ankit's heart, such a big heart. He is trying to help the girl overcome her financial crisis by sharing 1% of the profits. Such a good man. Okay. Can he be guilty? Can he be liable for professional misconduct? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. The reason is while writing the answer in the exam, you have to keep emotions aside. You have to just see and work with the clauses. And this I've given under clause 2. So what is clause 2 now? A CM practice is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he pays or allows or agrees to pay or allow directly or indirectly any share, commission, brokerage of his fee or profit of his professional work. Okay. So here is he giving something as a percentage of profit? Is he giving something out? Is he paying some kind of a commission, brokerage, fees? Is he giving something like that? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. Okay. Now, is it allowed to pay this? Yes, it is allowed to pay, but to certain persons who are covered under 53A1 and 53A3 regulations, where they have mentioned some categories there. For example, CS, cost accountant, bachelor in architecture, bachelor in law, bachelor in technology, bachelor in engineering. So people who have done actuarial science. So for these people, can you pay? Answer is yes. Okay. But however, if you are sharing it with a person who is not even a CA, now the article clerk who has joined, she's an intern, right? So she's not a CA. But if you are sharing 1% of profit with such a person, then it is not allowed. Okay. So is monthly stipend correct? Answer is yes. But when sharing 1% of profit is incorrect. Hence, in this case, Mr. Ankit will be guilty. Okay. Under clause 2 of part 1 of the first schedule. Okay. Next, let's see this. Discuss whether the following actions by a CA would amount to misconduct or not. A CA practicing in India enters into partnership with, and they have written here, a certified public accountant in New York. Okay. Now here they are given a CPA in New York. Okay. Let's read the second part also. They are given here a CA from the Institute of CAs in England and Wales in London. Okay. So basically the CA Institute of UK. Okay. आगे लिखा हुआ है, and in each case the members concerned take the profits earned in their own country. Will it make any difference if an Indian CA is practicing outside India? So he's practicing outside India and becomes a partner with the aforesaid accountants. Let's say he's practicing outside India and he's a partner with a CPA, or he's a partner with a person who is done from the CA Institute of England and Wales. Okay. Now let's understand this question and let's just break it into two parts. First part starts from here and then ends here. Second part starts from here and ends here. Okay. Now let's analyze it and do it properly. Let's see this. A CA practicing in India enters into partnership with a certified public accountant in New York. Okay. Whenever they give, always remember in the exam, whenever they give a person having a degree outside India, CPA is a degree outside India, and here also this person is a CA from ICEAW, that is basically Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales. Okay, ICEAW. Now something like this, if it is given ever, you have to always remember that you have to understand the situation that this person cannot enter into partnership with such a person. However, he can enter into partnership if recognized by the council or the central government. Okay. So in the exam, you have to not know, the student is not supposed to know whether ICI has any kind of an agreement with a CPA, with CPA is there, or the Institute of AICPA, or ICI has any, kind of tie-up with ICAEW. So all this a student is not required to know. So whenever such a question is given, you can say that, just simply write there that a CA practicing in India can enter into a partnership with such a person if it is recognized by the council of ICAI, council or CG, council of ICI or the central government, only if it is recognized by them, only then such a person can enter into a partnership. Okay, but you are not supposed to know as a student which bodies the ICI is having such a kind of a tie-up with. That you are not required to know. Okay. Next, they are given here, that is, will it make a difference if the Indian CA is practicing outside India and becomes a partner with the aforesaid accountants? So they are saying if the Indian CA becomes a partner with such accountants, then will it be deemed to be guilty? But it is now happening outside India. So you have to apply a simple logic and say that, see, CA Act 1949, where the schedules are given, the jurisprudence is within India. Okay, jurisprudence is within India. So outside India, whatever a CA in practice does, not a problem. They are saying कि कुछ भी होगा कोई problem नहीं है. Outside India, whatever you do, no offense at all. But if you come to India and when you are in India, at that time, if you are doing such kind of an activity, then maybe you will be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct. Okay, so outside India, not a problem at all. For example, if a person who has completed a CA in India takes the COP in India, practices in India for a few years, then goes abroad. Okay, his COP is still valid. Now, after just going abroad, he enters into a partnership with people of this category. Okay, that is a member of AICPA, that is American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, or ICAEW, that is Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales. Okay, so if he enters into a partnership with such persons, is it okay? Answer is no problem at all, because this is happening outside India. It is outside the jurisprudence of CA Act 1949. Okay, that is in relation to this part. Okay, that is question number 12. Let's see the next point. The next point here is Mr. Honest, a CA in practice, wrote 2 letters to Messrs. XY Chartered Accountants, a firm of CAs, okay, requesting them to allot him some professional work. Okay, so Mr. Honest is a CA. Maybe he's a young CA. Okay, he does not have clients. So what he did is he wrote 2 letters to Messrs. XY Chartered Accountants and firm to allot some professional work to him. As he did not have a significant practice or clients, he also wrote a letter to Messrs. ABC, a firm of CA, for securing professional work. So for more work, he just, because he did not have any client, he was just trying his luck. So he wrote to another CA, ABC, a firm of CAs, for securing professional work. Okay. Mr. Clever, another CA, informed ICAI regarding Mr. Honest's approach to secure the professional work. Is Mr. Honest wrong in soliciting professional work? He's asking for professional work, no? So that is soliciting professional work. तो यहाँ पे उन्होंने पूछा है कि बोलो is this right or wrong? So they have asked a question whether this is correct or incorrect. Okay. Now, generally what happens and why I have picked this question is because students generally when they read this, they see that, okay, this guy has written 2 letters to Messrs. XY Chartered Accountants. He has also written a letter to Messrs. ABC, a firm of CA. Okay. He has written all these letters to them. So he's just trying his luck. So this is basically soliciting. He cannot do that. He cannot keep writing letters to every chartered accountant he knows or may not know, but he's just writing to them, ki, please mujhe kaam de do, give me some work. All these things he is doing. Is he guilty? So your initial thought process will be like, yes, he's guilty, because what is this? How can a CA, write the random letters to different CAs and ask for work? Okay, he's a CA, yaar, he should have this reputation. But answer is not guilty or not guilty, because in clause 6, if you see clause 6, a CA in fact is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he solicits clients of professional work directly or indirectly by circulars, advertisement, personal communication, interviews, or any other means. However, a CA can apply, request, invite, secure work from any other CA. So he's doing that thing only. He's applying, inviting, securing work from any other CA. So can he do that? Answer is yes, no problem at all. So in this case, he will not be guilty. So Mr. Honest will not be guilty in this case. Okay, very nice question. Something that can play with the student's mind in the examination. That pressure, no, suddenly you will be like, no, this should be guilty. Yaar. How can he write so many letters? So see, you have to always analyze keeping the facts in mind. Okay, see this question number 17 that we just did. Even this question, that Mr. Ankit's question, playing with your emotions. It will make you feel that, yaar, this to no problem at all. Yaar, Ankit is doing such a good thing. He's giving money. No problem at all. That to a person who is having financial crisis, such a big heart he has. So you have to be very careful in the exam that you don't get, stuck to these traps. Okay. So just be careful. Let's go to the next question. See this. A partner of a firm of CAs during a TV interview handed over a biodata of his firm to the chairperson. Okay. Such biodata contained detailed the standings of the international firm with which the firm was associated. Okay. Let's say that there is a firm called as ABC and Associates, and this firm is in association with, let's say, Ernst & Young, EY. Okay, that's a Big Four. Now, Big Four is, of course, an international firm. So now this firm is in association, working in association with EY in India. Okay, let's see again. It also details the achievements of the concerned partner and his recognition as an expert in the field of taxation in the country. The chairperson read out the biodata during the interview. What is your opinion in the given case? Okay, what is your opinion in the given case? Now, something that I want to discuss in relation to this clause, that is clause 6. Okay, clause 6 and clause 7. Now, clause 6 uses two words. Okay, I'll just mention those. Solicits clients and professional work. So these are the two, professional work and solicits the clients. Directly or indirectly, that is clause 6. Okay. Now, clause 7 talks about a CM that is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he advertises his professional attainments or services or uses designation other than chartered accountants in professional document, visiting cards, letterheads, or signboards. Okay, the language goes like that. So in the second part, they are talking about, let's say, professional attainments. Okay, so we'll use the word professional attainments. Now, understand what I'm trying to say. See, when I say solicits, solicits is basically in any way approaching the client. Okay, you solicit the client. You want the client to join your firm. Okay, to give your firm some work. That is called as soliciting the client. So soliciting the client or for any professional work, if we are keeping the front foot, then basically they are saying, see, you cannot do this. Let your work speak. Let people refer your name. You cannot solicit the client or approach the client. Okay, that is basically your clause 6. Okay. Clause 7 talks about professional attainments. Now, what is professional attainments? When the CA talks about his, you know what, we have achieved so much, we have done this, we have done that. That is basically professional attainments. Talks about his achievements. Okay, so that is basically professional attainment. That is clause 7. Okay. Now, what is the confusion point here? I'll tell you that confusion point, and I'll tell you pinpoint exactly. When we do clause 6, here it is solicits clients of professional work by directly or indirectly by circulars, advertisement. So here you have, after circulars, the word advertisement is given. Okay. And when you go to clause 7, let's see clause 7 reading. It is a CM that is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he advertises his professional attainment. So here also it is advertises. So here the students get confused. Sir, advertising is here also. Advertising is here also. So where should we put the focus on? So you have to always understand that advertisement in what context it is. Okay, if advertisement is in the context of soliciting, like approaching the clients, then that is a different matter. If advertisement is in relation to boasting, telling about yourself, so that is basically your professional attainments. Okay, professional attainments. When you are approaching the client, that is solicits clients and professional work. And when you are talking about the professional attainments, then that is basically a different kind of an advertisement. Okay, so you have to pinpoint the nature very correctly. It is also possible that this matter, both the matters can be there in the question. So you need to have the ability in relation to that also. I'll just clarify one more point. So because we are learning this, let's do it in entirety. See, this clause 7 also has one more part. So I'll read clause 7 once more. Okay. A CM that is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he advertises professional attainments or services or uses designation other than CA. Okay, uses designation other than CA on professional document, visiting card, letterhead, or signboards. So the second part of this talks about uses designation other than CA. Okay, so uses designation. Okay, other than CA. A CA uses a designation called as CA and tax consultant. Okay, that is not allowed. Okay, it is not allowed. We'll be seeing it in another question. So basically, if a CA uses such kind of a designation, it is not allowed. However, some designations are allowed. Can you use CA and can you also mention their CS? Okay, can you do that? Answer is yes, keeping in mind section 7 also. Section 7 and clause 7 are two different parts. Now, usage designation is something that is second part of your clause 7. Okay. लेकिन अभी फिलहाल के लिए let's read this question and analyze with these two areas. Which area? This area and this area. Let's see this. A partner of a firm of CAs during a TV interview handed over a biodata of his firm to the chairperson. Such biodata detailed the standing of the international firm with which the firm was associated. Okay. It also detailed the achievements of the concerned partner. Okay. And this recognition as an expert in the field of taxation in the country. The chairperson read out the biodata during the interview. What is your opinion in the given case? Okay. So now you have to ask yourself here, what kind of a matter is this? Okay. If the biodata was given and to be read out in the meeting, read out in the discussion, first of all, the CA should take care that the host does not take the CA firm's name. The host does not talk about the CA. He only mentions their name, mentions that they are CA and just moves on. Okay. And moves on with the matter. Okay. With the discussion. But however, if there is this kind of a, just saying, this person has achieved this person has done that, his firm is this, his firm is associated with this firm. So all these things that the host is reading, the person who is conducting the interview, that person is reading all these things. So is this right? Answer is no. Answer is no. So this gets caught under both, that is clause 6 and clause 7. The reason being such. Solicit client is basically the CA if he has asked the person to conduct the read the biodata. He's in one way he wants to solicit the client. Okay, he wants to approach the client. He wants the clients to hear him out. Second is he's doing that by talking about his professional attainments. Okay, he could have done that in another way also. For example, if this line would have not been there, I'll just tell you exactly where the point is. Let's say this achievements point is not there and this international firm point is not there. Okay, that is not there. But other than that, this expert part is not there. Basically, expert in the field of taxation, that part is not there. So basically, the host just says that this person is a partner in so and so firm, and so firm is involved in taxation. That's it. Only this much he says. He does not say expert in taxation, this, that. He does not say anything. He just mentions the firm's name and says that this firm is this firm provides tax consultancy, something like that. Now that is not advertises his professional attainment, because here professional attainments are not advertised. There is no word like expertise, something like that is not used. Only soliciting is happening. Only you're approaching the client. And remember, if you open clause 6, there it is written solicit the client of professional work directly or indirectly. So this is indirectly. The CA is not telling it, but he is making the host say this. The person who is taking the interview basically say it. I hope you're understanding. So that is why clause 6 will come, because of that reason. Now, why will clause 7 come? Clause 7 will come because of what I have underlined above. That is basically your international CA firm, achievements, he has said, expert in the field of taxation. All these things, when these come, this is basically to solicit client, but by telling about your professional attainments. Are you understanding? So that is basically your clause 7. Clear? Okay. So be very, very careful. That's why I picked up this question, so that you are able to understand clause 6 kab, clause 7 kab, because there is a fine line between them. So you have to understand, especially when it leads to advertisement wala part, because here also you have advertisement, here also you have advertisement. Okay, I hope you are able to understand this. It's a important matter that a student should know, because as you know, clause 6 is a very important clause. Okay, it is a clause which has been asked the maximum times in the CA exam, CA final audit exam. Okay, when professional ethics question is asked, generally you will see one question of clause 6. Okay, in at least 1 out of 2 or 3 attempts, you will see one question out of clause 6. Okay, so that is why be very, very careful and answer it sharply in the exam. Okay, I hope the discussion was helpful. Let's see the next one. That is very nice question. See this, very smart question. Okay, CA Sonu and CA Monu are two partners of a CA firm, Sonu Monu and Associates. Being very pious, pious means religious, CA Sonu organized a religious ceremony at his home. Okay, we'll call this ceremony as Satyanarayan Puja. Okay, for which he instructed his printing agent to add his designation CA. Okay, with his name in the invitation card. So first point is, sir, in the invitation cards, can we mention that we are a CA? Answer is yes, no problem at all. Okay, for any function, can you mention that you are a CA? Answer is no problem, you can mention that. Later on, the invitations were distributed to all the relatives. See this, all the relatives, close friends and clients of both the partners. That is what they have said. Now, when you see clause 6, in the examples in our notes, you will see that, okay, can we give the such religious ceremony cards, the invitation cards? Can we mention CA first of all? Answer is yes. And can we give it to all the relatives? The answer is yes, you can. Second is, can we give it to close friends? Answer is yes, you can. Can you also invite your clients? Answer is yes, you can. You can, no problem in this, no problem at all. But the next question that arises is of both the partners. Now, this is where the problem lies. You cannot give to all the relatives, close friends and clients of both the partners. You cannot call. You can only give it to the partner concerned. Okay, only to the partner concerned. Now you will see whose house that function is going on. It is going in the house of CA Sonu. So only CA Sonu's relatives, close friends, clients will be called. Next point will be, but sir, CA Sonu and Monu are part of the same firm. The firm can have the entire client list. So the clients of Sonu and the clients of Monu are the same because they are clients of the same firm. Is that okay then to call all the clients? Answer is yes. Then in relation to clients, it is okay. But what about relatives? What about close friends? So one of the students, in my batch, that student asked a question. And the student said, sir, what if CA Sonu and CA Monu are twin brothers? They are brothers. Okay, not twin. Twin to twin, yeah, brothers. They are brothers. So the relatives will be the same, no? Mother side, father side, relatives will be the same. So then all the relatives of Sonu are also relatives of Monu. So sir, is that allowed? Answer is yes, no problem at all. So CA Sonu and Monu went to the same school. They were twins, sir. So they were what do you call part of the same group. College also did it together. CA also did it together. So all the close friends are common, sir. Sir, what about now? So all the relative close friends and clients of both the partners, now it is fine. Answer is yes, now it is fine because our intention is to call all the relatives, close friends, clients of Sonu. But now Monu and Sonu's life is so parallel that ठीक है, अभी दोनों का अगर same आ रहा है तो ठीक है. Are you able to understand? But remember, it is in relation to the partner concerned. So just keep that in mind. Okay, this was the RTP May 16 question. Be very careful. Okay, something tricky. See, last three words, the answer changes. Till this off point, everything is like, okay, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. Last three words, both the partners. Okay. Suddenly the answer has changed and suddenly यहाँ पे Mr. CA Sonu will be guilty. Okay, I hope it is clear. Let's look at the next point. Next, they have given PQR and associates, chartered accountants have their website. Okay, good. And on the letterhead of the firm, it is mentioned that visit our website pqr.com. Okay, there should be .com here. Okay, pqr.com. In the website, the nature of assignments handled, names of prominent clients, and fees charged is also displayed. Okay, so they have given the nature of assignments handled, they have given the prominent clients and the fees charged. Now, why I have picked up this question? This question is in relation to the website. Okay, now there is a guidelines on website that has been released by ICAI, which is there in your portion. Now, whenever such a question comes, you have to understand that in this question, you have to write your answer based on each and every minute point. First of all, can a chartered accountancy firm have their own website? Answer is yes, because guidelines for website has been given. Now, in that website, can they provide the nature of the assignments handled? Answer is yes, you can provide the nature of assignments handled, but it should be in pull mode. Okay, so that is being given. It should be in pull mode. Now the next question is, can in the letterhead of the firm, can they mention pqr.com? Answer is yes. So that is also not a problem. So that is also right. Now, which is the problematic area then? Sir, if you are telling everything is right, then everything is right. What is the problematic area? Problematic area is you cannot write visit our website because that would mean that you are soliciting the client. You're soliciting the client. You're telling the client, see, come and see my website. Visit our website. Okay, you're attracting the client towards your website. That is the logic they have applied. So they have said visit our website word should not be mentioned. That is guilty. That will make it guilty. pqr.com if you mention only pqr.com. Is that okay? Yes. But if you write visit our website pqr.com, then that is misconduct. Okay. Next is, can you name the mention of your prominent clients? Answer is no, you cannot. Client name, how can you give? Second is fees charge, can you give? Answer is no. These three you cannot give. So in the exam, when you write now, see, you have to clearly mention in the exam. And many students, ask me, sir, I have written professional ethics so well. Why they cut my marks? I don't know. Because you have not written in detail. So you have to say that, okay, website maintenance is okay, but you have to follow the guidelines on website that is released by ICAI. Nature of assignments handle you can write in your website, but on pull mode. Then pqr.com also you can mention. But however, you cannot mention here, visit our website, prominent client, fees charge, you cannot mention. Now, when you write regarding all these areas which I have marked here, only then you will stand a chance to get 3.5 marks out of 4 or 4 out of 4 based on the quality of your answer. Okay, so be very, very careful in relation to such areas where, minute detailing is required. Okay, next, let's see. A practicing CA uses a visiting card in which he designates himself besides as CA as a tax consultant, cost accountant. Okay, so he mentions himself as a tax consultant, as a cost accountant. Is that right? Answer is definitely no. Okay, I'll tell you the reason why. First of all, clause 7. A CA in practice is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he advertises his professional attainments or services or uses designation other than CA on a professional document, visiting card, letterheads or signboards. Okay. However, degree of university established by law or recognized by the council or ICAI, council or CG, or title indicating membership of ICAI or any other body that is recognized by the council or CG, such degrees you can mention, no problem at all. Okay. But remember the words title indicating membership. Title indicating membership. When you are a member of ICAI, what is the title indicating membership? CA. So when I say CA, it means that I am a member of ICAI. Okay. So that is a title indicating membership. So now let's go to the second part first. If you write yourself in the visiting card as cost accountant, is that a title indicating membership? No, it is a full name, the cost accountant. So you can write here CMA in your visiting card. Can you write CMA if you're a CA and if you're printing a visiting card? Can you write yourself there as CMA? Answer is right, because here this is a title indicating membership of the Institute of Cost and Management Accountants. Okay, so that is okay, not a problem at all. Can you mention tax consultant? Answer is no, you cannot mention tax consultant. What is the reason now? What is the reason for this? Tax consultant you cannot mention. Tax consultant you cannot mention at all. क्या reason है इसका? क्या reason? Because it is not any degree. It is not a degree. It is in fact a designation. It is a designation. When you join a firm and you are good at tax, at certain level you have been given the title of tax consultant. It's a designation that is given to you. So this is clearly not a degree established by law or recognized by the council or the central government, or it is not even a title indicating membership of any of the bodies. Tax consultancy, there is no body called as Institute of Tax Consultants of India. Are you understanding my point? So this you cannot mention. However, cost consultant, cost accountant, can you mention? Answer is yes, but not the entire name. You can mention the title indicating the membership of that institute. Okay, so can you mention that? Answer is yes. Fantastic question that can come in the exam. Okay, very nice question. It gives the examiner a thought process, gives the examiner an idea in relation to your thought process, that how you are analyzing your clause 7 second part, that is uses designation point. Okay, I hope this is helpful. Okay, let's see the next one. Mr. Nigal, a CA in practice, delivered a speech in the national conference organized by the Ministry of Textiles. While delivering the speech, he told to the audience that he is a management expert, CCC, management expert, and his firm provides services of taxation and audit at reasonable rates. Okay, so he first calls himself as a management expert. Next, he also requested the audience to approach his firm. See this, he also requested the audience to approach his firm. Come to our firm, please come to our firm of chartered accountants for these services. And at the request of audience, he also distributed the business cards and the telephone number of his firm to those in the audience. Comment. First, management expert advertises professional attainments or services. Is that happening? Yes, clause 7, attracted. Next is requested the audience to approach his firm, soliciting the client. Clear case of soliciting the client. Okay, so if this happens, that is clause 6. So again, in this answer, you will write clause 6 and clause 7. Simple to understand here. Okay, let's see the next one. Now let's see this part. Here they have given CAT in practice was appointed to carry out internal audit of a stockbroker. Okay, that is not CAT, that is CA.T. Okay, it should be CA.T. I'll just put the dot so that there is no confusion. Okay, एक second. Yeah, okay. Just take it as CA.T. Okay. A CAT is in practice was appointed to carry out internal audit of a stockbroker listed with BSE. However, he failed to intimate his appointment to statutory auditors of the company. The statutory auditor feels this violation of professional ethics. Okay. Now, what does the clause say? This is in relation to clause 8 of part 1 of the first schedule. What does that say? A CA in practice is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he accepts the position as auditor previously held by another chartered accountant without first communicating with him in writing. Okay. So now here the next point is, sir, here no, this person is going to be appointed as an internal auditor. He is going to carry out internal audit. So sir, which auditor should he communicate with? Should he communicate with the statutory auditor or the previous internal auditor? Always remember, we have to always communicate who you are replacing and not who you are going to work parallelly with. Okay, just remember this. You have to always communicate with those who you are replacing and not with whom you are going to parallelly work with. Okay. Now, internal auditor, if I am appointed as an internal auditor, it means that I have replaced some other person as an internal auditor, correct? So I have to communicate with the previous internal auditor. Okay. Now, when the statutory auditor says that yeah, he should have communicated with me also in this case, so we will not communicate with the statutory auditor because statutory audit and internal audit are parallel positions. Okay. So people who are going to work parallelly with me, the internal auditor is going to do his work, the statutory auditor is going to do side by side his work. So we are not going to communicate with the people who we are going to work parallelly with. We have to communicate with those whose positions we are replacing. So okay, so in whose place we are coming. So here the contention of the statutory auditor is wrong. The statutory auditor in this case is incorrect. Okay. Next is the chairman of a audit committee of a blue chip company, who is a CA, asked the firm in which he was previously a partner to quote their fee on a success fee basis. so as to ensure that the professional work is assigned to such a firm. Do you approve the chairman's contention? Answer is no. Okay. Why? Because success fee basis will mean that as it grows, the remuneration of CA also grows. So you will be like, sir, what is the problem then? The problem is that this cannot be allowed, because then the CA will be rooting for the company's success. He will say that अच्छा fraud किया है लेकिन sales बढ़ रहा है क्या, चलो कोई बात नहीं, हम fraud को report नहीं करेंगे, even though we have caught the fraud, but we will not report it because the firm is growing. If the firm grows, we are going to earn more. Okay, so it cannot be allowed, and that will be a violation of what? Clause 10 of part 1 of the first schedule. Okay, so that is why this part is given here. Okay, simple question in relation to clause 10. Clause 10 is one of the most easiest areas to identify. Okay, so that will be much more easier for you to write in the examination. This is a very nice question. ये देखो क्या लिखा है. A CA having COP entered into partnership with persons who are not the members of the institute. Okay, for the purpose of carrying on business. So they are saying that okay, a CA entered into partnership with persons who are not the member of the institute. Now, because we have already covered a clause 4, we can understand that. See, partnership completely not allowed with other than CA. It is not like that. You are allowed to enter into a partnership, but however, certain categories of persons are only being allowed. That is where clause 4 comes into the picture. So that is, you should have that knowledge. Here they have said that partnership with persons who are not the members of the institute, that is not members of ICA, but of course they can be of any other profession. So here you have to assume one thing in the examination, whether they are those, can a CA enter into a partnership with a lawyer? Answer is yes, no problem at all. Can a CA enter into a partnership with a person who has an actuarial science? Answer is yes, no problem at all. So here they have said a CA having a COP entered into a partnership with persons who are not the members of the institute. So you have to take an assumption whether they are covered in those other categories or not covered in other categories. Now I am taking the assumption that they are not covered in other categories. They are not covered in other categories. So the CA has entered into a partnership with people who are not lawyers, who are not company secretaries, who are not cost accountants, who are not architects, who are not having any bachelor in architecture, bachelor in law, bachelor in technology, bachelor in engineering. All these things they are not having. Okay, so let's see this now. The share of the chartered accountant in the profit and loss was 25%. The 25% partner the CA was. He was to take part in the business and was entitled to represent the firm before the government authorities, etc. He was operating the bank account of the firm, was receiving monies from the customers, and was also looking after the affairs of the partnership. So basically, there is a CA having COP, but he is now entering into a partnership which is different from his practice, from his CA practice. So can we say that he started on another business only? Answer is yes. Now there is the point where clause 11 is also attracted, and where he has entered into a partnership with a person for doing some other business, okay, and not engaging in his business of practice as a CA. So here what they have said is, because we have taken the assumption that he is doing partnership with other categories, he is also running his own business here, and he is not engaging in his main practice as a chartered accountant in practice. He is not doing that. So here he will be deemed to be guilty under two clauses, that is clause 4 because of the partnership part, and that is clause 11. Sorry for that, one second. Yeah, and clause 11. And clause 11. He will be deemed to be guilty under clause 4 and clause 11 in the assumption that we have taken. Okay. Now, if you change the assumption and say that, sir, if he is entering into a partnership with, let's say, a lawyer or an actuarial science person or a person who is a CS, is that fine? Then answer is yes. Then it is okay, because then his business is basically dealing with his practice only. So is that allowed? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. Okay. So it depends on what assumption you take, and that is why this question becomes very important. Okay. Let's see this part. Mr. A is a practicing CA. This should be CA. Okay. Working as proprietor of Messrs. A and Company. He went abroad for 3 months. Okay. He delegated the authority to Mr. Y, a CA, his employee. Okay. So Mr. Y is a CA and it is his employee, for taking care of routine matters of his office. During his absence, Mr. Y has conducted the under-mentioned jobs in the name of Messrs. A and Company. First is he issued the audit queries. So first was in relation to audit queries to the client, which were raised during the course of audit. Second, he issued a production certificate to a client under Central Excise Act 1944. He attended, and this is the third part, okay, so this is the third one. He attended income tax proceedings for a client as an authorized representative before income tax authorities. Please comment on eligibility of Mr. Y for conduction for conducting होना चाहिए, conducting such jobs, okay, conducting such jobs in the name of Messrs. A and Company and liability of Mr. A under CA Act 1949. Okay. Now this is in relation to the signature. Now there they are saying that a CA practice has to sign, the CA practice or his CA partner, a CA practice or his CA partner, they have to sign something called as BAP fire as per our code. That is nothing but balance sheet, profit and loss account, financial statements and reports. And reports also includes certificates. Okay, that is what we learn in clause 12. Now here production certificate is there. Is it required for the CA or his CA partner to sign? Answer is yes. But here who has signed? Mr. Y has signed, who is CA employee. So for the second part, no, the CA will be guilty. CA will be guilty. However, first part, if you see, that is audit queries to client, that is a routine task. So can the CA delegate this to his CA employee? Answer is yes, no problem at all. Second, can the CA delegate, attending the income tax proceedings for a client as an authorized representative before income tax authorities? The answer is yes, not a problem. Representative, someone else can go as a representative, no problem. It is not necessary for the CA or his partner, CA partner to go. Okay, so can anybody else go? Answer is yes. So for the first and the third matter, not guilty, but for the second matter, guilty under clause 12 of part 1 of the first schedule. Okay, that is basically the coverage of that. Okay, let's see next. Mr. C, a CA, that is this 73. Mr. C, a CA, holds a certificate of practice. Okay, while in employment. So okay, he's in employment also. Recommends a particular lawyer to his employer in respect of a case. The lawyer, out of the professional fee received from the employer, paid a particular sum as a referral fee to Mr. C. So what happened is the lawyer, out of his professional fee received from the employer, paid a particular sum to as a referral fee to Mr. C. So now what has happened here? Imagine C is working in an office. C is a CA. And let's say this is the company and the board of directors are sitting here. Okay. The board of directors, we'll twist the example in this way so that it is easy for you to understand. Board of directors delegated C and told him that see, what we want you to do is we want you to find a good lawyer for the company here. Okay. So now lawyer 1, lawyer 2, lawyer 3, they all lined up and they send their CVs to the company, or they send their engagement, what they can do, how they can help. They basically send their scope, that what all they can help the firm with to the chartered accountant. But chartered accountant was very smart. There, what he did, he contacted all these 3 lawyers and called a meeting. Okay, lawyer 1 said, okay, I'll provide this service, that service. So Mr. C said, okay, theek hai, and all, and he rejected him. Lawyer 2 came like, we'll provide better service. We have this facility, that facility. We have such kind of manpower. So we'll provide better service. So Mr. C was not impressed. This lawyers 3 came and did the main point. He said that, see, I'll provide the legal services, no problem at all, and I want to get appointed. Tell me how much you want. So Mr. C said, if you are appointed as a lawyer, then I want basically 1 lakh rupees from you. Okay, 1 lakh rupees cash from you. Okay. So now when this happens, you understand that Mr. C in one way is taking a bribe to appoint lawyer 3. Okay. So take that example in this sense. So when you see this, you will understand that the professional fee received from employer paid a particular sum as what? As a referral fee to Mr. C. Is he guilty? Answer is yes. Okay. Because he is accepting. Okay. So a CA in service is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct. Okay. If he accepts or agrees to accept any part of fees, profits or gains from any lawyer, agent, broker, customer, CA by way of commission or gratification. That is what the clause says. That is clause 2 of part 2 of the first schedule. So is he guilty? Answer is yes, 100% yes, he is guilty here. Okay, so very easy to understand. Next point is a CA in practice, in spite of requests from the secretary of the institute, fails to submit form number 18. Is he liable for professional misconduct? This is a very nice one. And why I picked this up, I'll tell you the reason. This part 3 has a part called as something called as your misconduct that any CA can do. Any CA, if he conducts this misconduct, that is covered in part 3. That is whether it is a CA in practice or a CA in service. Now here, there are 2 parts to it. See, when ICAI calls for information, when I say ICAI, it means the institute, council, committees, director discipline, board of discipline, disciplinary committee, quality review board, appellate authority. Okay, when they call for any information, one thing is to not provide information. Second is to provide information, but the information is false. Okay. Now this not providing information, no, is covered in clause 2 of part 3 of the first schedule. Clause 2 of part 3 of the first schedule. Okay. Actually, the part has to be written in Roman number. So I'll just correct it so that you understand the correct way of writing. Part 3. Okay. So clause 2 of part 3 of the first schedule. That is where the CA is not providing the information to ICAI. Okay. Now the second part that says in providing a wrong information, false information. Okay. Now where is that covered? That is covered in clause 3 of part 2 of the second schedule. So false will get covered here. False will get covered here. But not providing will get covered here. Okay, so that is why I picked up. A CM practice in spite of request from the secretary of the institute fails to submit form number 18. Is he liable for professional misconduct? Answer is yes. Fails to submit. That is basically this clause. He has not submitted only. Okay. Next, part 4 of the first schedule. Mr. CA practicing CA failed to return the books of accounts and other documents of a client despite many reminders from the client. The client had settled his entire fees dues also. So here they have said that even though the client has paid the fees entirely, the engagement is already maybe done, but the CA is not returning the books of accounts of the client to the client or some other document. Like it can be some agreements, important documentation that the CA has, the original copies of it. But the CA is not returning that. Now what this does is this brings ICAI into disrepute. People will say, अरे यार ये कौन से लोग हैं यार, ये कौन से members के institute, ये कौन से members के कौन से institute के members हैं यहाँ पे, ये कैसे लोग हैं यहाँ पे बुक्स रिटर्न ही नहीं करते, हमें यहाँ पे एंट्रीज पास करनी है, बुक रिटर्न ही नहीं कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे, कैसे लोग, इनको रिमाइंडर दे दिया 10 बार 15 बार बोल चुके हैं हम, we have called them 15 20 30 times, they are not returning it only. What kind of members are these? So this brings institute into disrepute. If that disrepute matter comes, remember it is covered in the part 4 of the first schedule. Okay, so that is basically in relation to the first schedule matter. There is one more in fact. Oh, sorry. Okay, so let's see this. Mr. I, a CA, had an account with a bank. The normal balance in this account remained at a level below rupees 25,000. The bank inadvertently, means by mistake, created this account with a check of 2,50,000. So generally it has below 25,000, but suddenly the check of 2,50,000 which is created inadvertently, that is by mistakenly by the bank, belonging to some other account holder. When Mr. I came to know about this, he withdrew the amount of rupees 2,75,000 and closed the bank account. So 25,000 plus 2,50,000, he just withdrew it and then closed the bank account. He knows that 2,50,000 he doesn't deserve. Still, he took the money out and closed the bank account. After 1 year, the bank noticed the mistake and claimed rupees 2,75,000 with interest. Mr. I contested this claim. He said, how you only created to my account? So I just withdrew it. Now I have used it for my children's birthday party, for buying a nice, jewelry for my wife. I have spent it, personal expenses. Now next they have asked, can the bank approach ICAI for disciplinary action against Mr. I? Now here also see what happened. It has put ICAI into disrepute. Yeah. ICAI people will now, the bank will now approach ICAI. Say, see this kind of members you are having. We just inadvertently created it. That person doesn't deserve this money, but still that person has withdrawn that money. He has now spent it on personal expenses. What kind of a person do you have? What kind of members are you keeping? What is going on with ICAI? Is this the quality of people that should be there in ICAI? All these dialogues bank is telling ICAI. So ICAI will of course reprimand the member. Reprimand means call the member and talk to the member, scold the member. Say, what is going on? You cannot do all this. You are a member of ICAI. We are a reputed body. You cannot do all these things. Again, he has brought ICAI into disrepute. Okay. So this is again covered in your part 4 of the first schedule. Okay. That disrepute. Easy, simple part till here. Okay. Very simple to understand. Okay. Now part 1 of the second schedule. Let's see. First question is, XYZ Company Limited has applied to a bank for loan facilities. The bank, on studying the finance statements of the company, noticed that you are the auditor and requests you to come at the bank for a discussion. In the course of discussions, the bank asks your opinion regarding the company and also asks for detailed information regarding few items in the financial statements. The information is available in your working paper file. What should be your response and why? Okay. Now this is in relation to your clause 1 of part 1 of the second schedule, where can the CA disclose information of his client? Answer generally is no. However, he can disclose if it is permitted by the client or required by law. So here, because the client has not permitted and because there is no requirement of law to give the information to the bank, it is the CA's choice in relation to basically the CA cannot disclose, first of all. And if the client gives the permission, then the CA can disclose. Okay. So here they have given here, see, understand the question they have given here. What would be your response and why? Okay. So when they ask you such a question in the exam regarding what would be your response and why, it means that they are not telling you took this action, so tell whether you're guilty or not guilty. They are saying that, see, the information is there in your working paper file. So what should be your reaction? Okay. So what we'll do is we'll approach the client. We'll take the client's permission. If the client gives the permission, then we'll share the information to the with the bank. And if the client does not give the permission, then we'll not share the information. Okay. So in this answer, there will be no guilty, not guilty, because here that action is still pending. Okay. So just note this point. That is why I picked up this question, so that you understand that this is something that is, the question is in the sense of presently going question. Okay. It is currently, they are not said that this happened, so now tell me guilty or not guilty. They are not given such a kind of question. Okay. So be very careful. Next is question number 90. Messrs. M&N Company, a firm of CAs, prepared and signed the forecast of a company earnings contingent upon future transaction without mentioning the basis on which the said estimates are prepared. A bank granted a loan to the said company based on the above forecast signed by Messrs. M&N Company. When the company defaulted in the repayment of the loan, the bank filed a complaint against Messrs. M&N Company. Okay. Now, simple. This is in relation to your clause 3 of part 1 of the second schedule, which says that a CM is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he gives an estimate of earnings contingent upon future transaction. However, he is not able to, he should not be able to, give that transaction if he has not collected something called as SOBAMA, that is source of information based on forecast major assumptions, and he should not vouch for the accuracy of forecast. Now, in this case, it is clearly given that the basis of such information was not available. Still, Messrs. M&N Company gave that information. So if this thing happens, then basically it is a misconduct on part of Messrs. M&N Company. Okay, because they could not check the basis of forecast. Okay. Next, let's see. Question number 94. Mr. A has been appointed statutory auditor of a private limited company where his spouse's sister husband is having 75% ownership. Okay. So here they are basically saying Mr. A has been appointed as a statutory auditor of a private limited company. Okay. Now, clause 4 basically says that if he himself, his firm, partner in his firm, or any of his relatives have substantial interest, then basically he should not pick up the statutory audit. Okay, if they have substantial interest in an organization, then they should not pick up the statutory audit. So the main point here is, can spouse's sister's husband be considered to be a relative? The answer is no. Okay, so it is no. So let's say the spouse's sister's husband is having 75% ownership. Still, should the CA accept can the CA accept the statutory audit? Answer is yes. There is no problem at all, because the reason is that the spouse's sister's husband is not covered in the definition of relative. Now, whenever such questions come, no, this also looks at the logical mindset of the student. Okay. Now, of course, if we see the law, this is not allowed. But however, you should know that there will be some kind of independence that will be lost. Okay, because spouse's sister's husband and us, the auditor, are not defined in relatives, but they are in one way relatives. They know each other very well. Okay. So the main point will be that, can the shareholders be put into doubt in their mind that, see, the spouse's sister husband is one of the is having 75% ownership, and now this person has been appointed as the auditor. Now, can they do some kind of wrongdoings together? And if this thought gets into the shareholders' mind, then it will be difficult for the shareholders to accept such an auditor. Okay. So generally, if possible, the auditor should not accept such appointments, even though it is not, even the spouse's sister's husband is not covered in the definition of relatives. Okay. But ideally, the auditor should not accept such appointments, even though as per law he can. Okay. Because spouse's sister's husband is not covered in the definition of relatives. Okay. Next is a practicing CA was appointed to represent a company before the tax authorities. He submitted on behalf of his client certain information and explanations to the authorities, which were found to be false and misleading. So now understand this. Here, when you read it for the first time, you will feel, oh, guilty, 100% guilty. He is, he is with a client, and the client has provided false information, and he has represented that information to the authorities. So definitely 100% guilty. But remember, he is just representing the company before taxation authorities. Okay, the CA. The CA has not checked the document. The CA does not know whether it is truthful or not. Okay. So these documents have been made by the client. It is made by the client. Okay. But the CA is representing the client before the taxation authorities. So in this case, the practicing CA will not be guilty. Will not be guilty because he'll be unaware regarding all these matters, regarding false and misleading statements, regarding false and misleading information. He'll not know about that. Okay. So that is why not guilty. Okay. Next, Mr. X, partner of X and Company, CAS, has compiled and signed the balance sheet of Falls Limited for submission to the bankers of the said company. Mr. X has also compiled and signed at the request of the company another balance sheet inflating the values of assets by 20% for submission to a term lending institution. Both the balance sheets were not in conformity with the books of accounts maintained by the company as they were not up to date. Comment on Mr. X's liability. Okay. Now, in this case, what is happening is basically there is failure to disclose material fact. Okay. And with that, Mr. X is also not reporting a material misstatement. Okay. So if such a thing happens, then it is basically covered under two clauses, that is clause 5 and clause 6. Failure to disclose a material fact is covered in clause 5 and failure to report a material misstatement is covered in clause 6 of part 1 of the second schedule. Okay, because both the offenses are happening in this question. Okay, so be very, very careful in relation to that. In the video lectures, in-depth explanation has been given in relation to how you should analyze each part. That is failure to disclose a material fact and how there can be a failure in relation to reporting a material misstatement. Okay. Next is 105. The cashier of the company committed a fraud and absconded with proceeds thereof. This happened during the course of the accounting year. The chief accountant of the company also did not know about the fraud. Now, let's understand this part in a simple manner. The cashier committed a fraud and absconded. He ran away. This happened during the course of the accounting year. The chief accountant of the company also did not know about the fraud. In the course of the audit, at the end of the year, the auditor failed to discover the fraud. Okay, so auditor could not find the fraud. After the audit was completed, however, the fraud was discovered by the chief accountant. Okay. Investigation made at that time indicates that the auditor did not exercise proper skill and care and performed his work in a desultory and haphazard manner. Desultory means a very negligent manner, not taking proper care. With this background, the directors of the company intend to file a disciplinary proceedings against the auditor. So here what has happened is there is a big failure from the part of the auditor, where the auditor did not exercise proper skill and care. Okay. And here it can, after reading this, you can maybe interpret in this way, that if he would have, exercised proper skill and care, maybe the fraud could have been caught. Okay. Now, when this happens, then we say that the auditor did not exercise due diligence. Okay. Or he was grossly negligent in the conduct of his duties. Okay. So that is your clause 7 of part 1 of the first schedule. The CM practice is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he does not exercise due diligence or is grossly negligent in the conduct of his professional duties. So in this case, he is definitely grossly negligent, which is very clear from these two adjectives, that is desultory and haphazard manner. Okay, so very important. Next, let's see. Z, a practicing CA, issued a certificate of circulation of a periodical without going into the most elementary details of how the circulation of a periodical was being maintained. Periodical is basically, you can take it as a magazine or a newspaper. That is, by not looking into the financial records, bank statements or bank passbook, by not examining evidence of actual payment of printer bills, and by not carrying to ascertain how many copies were sold and paid for. Now, when you see such a question, now this is not particularly in relation to only audit. This gives you an idea about the printing business also, where they said that how many copies were sold and paid for, printer bills, you have to take care of these things. Now, basically this says that the auditor should do an in-depth examination in relation to any matter in which he is of the opinion that there is misstatement. Okay. And if there is misstatement, if it is material in that nature, the auditor should be able to check, going into depth of it, the auditor should check whether everything is proper or not. Okay. Now, what has happened here is that the auditor has not examined the actual payment of printer bills, and by not caring, see this, not caring to ascertain how many copies were sold and paid for. Okay. And here also at the top they have mentioned without going into the most elementary details. Now, what this says is that has the auditor done some checking? Answer is yes. But has the auditor failed in doing even the basic checking of the details? Answer is yes. The auditor has failed. Now, if such a point comes here, then that is basically the auditor has failed to obtain sufficient information to express his opinion, or his exceptions are sufficiently material to negate the expression of opinion. But however, this fills the first part, that is the auditor has failed to obtain sufficient information to warrant an expression of opinion or give an expression of opinion. It is in that part. So this is basically your clause 8 of part 1 of the second schedule. Clause 8 of part 1 of the second schedule. Okay, so part 1 of the second schedule. Easy? Okay. Next is Mr. Z, a practicing CA, received a sum of rupees 1 lakh on 1/9/2009 from a client who intends to leave abroad for a period of a year, with a request that his advance tax liabilities to be paid over the 3 installments on 15 September 2009, 15 December 2009, and 15 March 2010. Okay. After remitting the first installment of advance tax on 5/9/2009, very important date, 5/9/2009. Remember, the due date that is to be paid is 15 September 2009. Okay. Z did not keep the balance money in a separate bank account, and he is of the opinion that he will remit the money when reasonable time as per payment schedule of advance tax is required to be made. Okay. So here what has happened is basically that Mr. Z, who is a practicing CA, his client gave him rupees 1 lakh. Okay. On 1st of September 2009. And the client who intends to leave abroad, he has, told the CA, request that his advance tax liability to be paid. He said, okay, take this money, please pay my advance tax liabilities, whatever is pending. Please ensure that that is paid as on the due dates. Now they have given here that the advance tax liability is to be paid on 15 September, 15 December, 15 March. Okay. And after remitting the first installment of advance tax on 5/9/2009, Z did not keep the balance money in the separate bank account. So what has happened here is this 15/9 payment of 15 September 2009, Z has made the first payment. Okay, he has remitted. But however, after remitting this amount, Mr. Z has not kept the balance money in a separate bank account. He has kept that money with himself. Now, this is where clause 10 of part 1 of the second schedule gets attracted. Basically, has he paid for the purpose that the client has instructed? Answer is yes. But however, after that, the balance money should have been kept in a separate bank account in the name of the client. Okay, but has he done that? Answer is no. So he must have opened a savings account, put the money there, he's earning interest, enjoying on that. So if such kind of activity is done, then basically that will lead to what? Professional misconduct as per clause 10 of part 1 of the second schedule. Okay. Now let's go to the next part. Let's see, that is part 2 of the second schedule. A CA in practice who entitled to take not more than 5 article clerks had already taken 5 such clerks represented to X, that he had still a vacancy, and included him to enter into articles with him. So he already had 5 articles, but he also included X and just told him, okay, you also come as an article. But remember, the firm was only allowed to take 5 articles. A formal deed was executed. Okay, the formal an agreement was executed. Subsequently, sorry for this. Okay, A subsequently cancelled the articles of the 5th article clerk for irregular attendance without reference to the institute. So he cancelled the attendance without reference to the institute. So he said, okay, I'm removing you. Explain whether A can be deemed guilty of professional misconduct. The answer is yes. Okay. Now, this is where Mr. A here, who is a CA in practice, he has contravened the provisions of the Act, regulations, and the guidelines. Now, if such a thing happens, then basically that is attracted under clause 1 of part 2 of the second schedule. Okay. So if this has happened, then basically what will happen? Mr. A will be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct. Now, I'll just give you a simple trick. Whenever article clerks are mentioned, generally, you will always see this clause 1 of part 2 of the second schedule getting attracted. Okay, so just that's a shortcut to remember, because all the regulations in relation to articles are there in the CA regulations. Okay, so if regulations are not followed, then basically it will get covered here. That is, there is contravening the provisions of the Act, regulations, and the guidelines given by the institute. So regulations is covered there. So generally, anything pertaining to article, just keep it in mind. It will be mostly covered under clause 1 of part 2 of the second schedule. Okay. Next, A is the auditor of Z Limited, which has a turnover of 200 crores. Okay. The audit fee for the year is fixed at rupees 50 lakhs. So just remember the audit fee is 50 lakhs. During the year, a company offers A an assignment of management consultancy. So another work within the meaning of section 2, subsection 2, clause 4. That is basically something that a CA in practice has to do of the CA Act 1949 for a remuneration of rupees 1 crore. So this amount is higher. A seeks your advice on accepting the assignment. So A has come to you for advice. Now remember, A has not accepted it or anything. A has just come to seek your advice. So again, this is something that is ongoing. This is not something where the decision of A or the action taken by A is already given. So A has come to you for advice. So basically in these questions, there will never be an answer which is guilty or not guilty, because you have to just give advice to it. Now remember, here they have written Z Limited, which has a turnover of 200 crores. Okay. Now remember this provision: if there is any public sector undertaking, government company, listed company, or any other public company having the turnover of 50 crores or more, and for these organizations, no, if I am already representing them as an auditor, then I cannot take up any other work in which they're paying me more than my audit fees. Okay, so that is what the content says that ICAI has given. So here what we are seeing is that this organization is covered under other public companies. Okay, because Z Limited, they are not given it is listed, not listed, anything like that. They have just said it has a turnover of 200 crores. Now Z Limited is having definitely a turnover of 50 crores or more. So is Z Limited getting covered? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. Because it's a public company having a turnover of 200 crores, which is definitely more than 50 crores. Now here, if A, who is the auditor, is accepting management consultancy services for which he is getting paid more than his audit fee of 50 lakhs, then Mr. A will be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct here. Okay, so that is a very important point to note. Okay. Next, clause 3 of part 2 of the second schedule. CAP, CAQ are running a firm or chartered accountant in the name of Messrs. PQ and Company. On 21/6/2015, they included the name of CAR, a practicing CA, without his knowledge. Without his knowledge, CAR doesn't know about this. As a partner, while submitting an application for empanelment as auditors for public sector banks branches to the institute, whether CAP and CAQ are professionally liable for misconduct. That is the question. This is exactly that point where I said that clause 3, part 2 of the second schedule, where the information provided to ICAI is false. So when ICAI called for the information, see this where they called for the information in relation to your submitting an application for empanelment as auditors. Now these people gave the false information here. Okay, and they said that CAR is also a part of our firm. That is false in nature. So if this happens, then basically will they be liable for professional misconduct? Answer is 100% yes. Okay. Next, a member of the institute shall not accept in a year more than a specified number of tax audits under section 44AB of the Income Tax Act. Mr. Gaurav is a partner in Messrs. XYZ and Company, a firm of chartered accountants with how many partners? 6 partners. During the assessment year 2015-16, Mr. Gaurav alone had signed 290 tax audit reports consisting of both corporate and non-corporate assessees. Comment. So they are saying Mr. Gaurav, one person here, has signed 290 tax audit reports. But what does the law say? The law under section 44AB says that a person can take, or what the CA guidelines also say, that a person can take maximum how many audits? Tax audits, 60 tax audits. 60 tax audits a person can take in his own name. So is Mr. Gaurav guilty? Answer is no. Why? So answer should be yes. 290 he has signed and he can only take 60 tax audits. So how is this right? The thing is, this is the keyword, that is 6 partners. See, this is in relation to signing the tax audit report. Signing can be done by anyone, but the client in Mr. Gaurav's name, can be 60. It is possible that the other partners are maybe out of Mumbai. Okay, it is possible. So these 6 partners can maximum have 360 clients. Okay, and out of this, let's say maximum 360 clients. Let's say 360 out of 360 clients they have. Suppose Mr. Gaurav had to sign tax audit reports and the number was 290. So is Mr. Gaurav allowed to sign? Answer is yes, no problem at all, because he's only signing. The clients are not coming in his name. In his name, only 60 tax audit clients will be there. But however, in this case, he's just signing it. So can he sign? Answer is yes. Okay. Remember here, they have clearly said Mr. Gaurav is a partner, because Mr. Gaurav should be a CA and a partner. If he is a partner and a CA, only then he can sign. Okay. Otherwise, he cannot sign this, because we saw that in clause 12 of part 1 of the first schedule. Okay. So that is this point. The last question, let's see. Mr. Z accepted the statutory audit of a SIC unit, NCT Limited, for the year ending 31st March 2015. During the course of audit, it was noticed by the statutory auditor that company's net worth was negative for the year ended 31st March 2014, and there was also a liability of tax audit fees of how much 35,000 in favor of the previous auditor. Comment. See, generally, if some fees payment is pending in relation to previous auditor, then we should not accept the client's work. Okay, because in the CA fraternity, in the CA community, we should have a kind of a unity where if our brother is not getting paid, then we will not accept the client's work, because the client can do that to us also. Okay. So in this way, the client will have to pay all the CAs on time properly, which is basically the motive of putting such a condition in place. But however, they have mentioned an exception, that is in relation to SIC units. Now, see, SIC units are having a negative, and in this case, they have said that it is having a negative net worth. So basically, the company, even if it wants to pay, does not have money. So if the company does not have money, how will the company make the payment? It is not possible at all. So here they have said that, see, even if there is a liability of tax audit fees of 35,000, still Mr. Z, even if he has accepted, he has done the right thing, no problem at all, because it is a SIC unit, because the company does not have money. Maybe in the future when the company gets money, at that time Mr. Z can enforce this point, saying that please pay the previous auditor first. After that, all your other expenses can be taken care of, but you have to pay the previous auditor. All this pressure he can put, but maybe after the company comes out of the terminology of a SIC company. So that is why this is very important. That is liability of tax audit fees of 35,000. Okay, so that even if it is not paid, Mr. Z can accept the work because it is in relation to a SIC company. Okay, I hope this is helpful. I wish you all the very best. Take care. See you.